The marble corridors of the Vatican's underground archives stretched before me like veins beneath ancient skin. My footsteps echoed against walls that had witnessed 2,000 years of secrets, each sound swallowed by the oppressive silence that lived down here, 60 feet below St. Peter's Basilica. "Congratulations on your promotion, Marcus," Cardinal Toretti had said 3 weeks ago, his thin lips barely moving beneath his hawk-like nose. "You've been selected for a position of utmost trust. The Vault of Clement requires a new guardian." I'd served in the Swiss Guard for 8 years, working my way up from perimeter duty to protecting high-ranking clergy. But the Vault of Clement, I'd never even heard of it. The Vatican's secret archives were legendary enough, but this was something else entirely, something that didn't appear in any official documentation I could find. My training began immediately. Father Benedetti, a gaunt man in his 70s with eyes like chips of obsidian, became my instructor. He taught me the protocols, the specific prayers to recite at each checkpoint, the exact sequence of keys required for entry, the times when the vault must never be accessed. But it was what he didn't teach me that gnawed at my mind. "The vault has 3 doors, he explained on my first day, leading me through a passage so narrow our shoulders brushed the walls. "You will guard the entrance to the first. You will check the seal on the second twice daily. The third door—" He paused, his fingers trembling slightly as he crossed himself. "The third door remains closed. Always." "What's behind it?" I asked. Father Benedetti's face went pale. "Your duty is to ensure it stays closed. That is all you need to know." The vault entrance was hidden behind a false wall in the lowest level of the archives. You had to know exactly which stone to press, and in what order, or you'd never find it. The first door was iron, installed sometime in the 15th century, according to Father Benedetti. Massive hinges groaned as I opened it each morning, revealing a chamber lit by electric bulbs that seemed too modern for the medieval stonework. The second door stood at the far end of this antechamber. Made of bronze and covered in Latin inscriptions, it bore the papal seal of Clement V, the pope who disbanded the Knights Templar in 1312. This door I never opened, only checked the wax seal that secured it, ensuring it remained unbroken. But it was the third door that haunted me. Set into the left wall of the antechamber, it seemed older than time itself. The wood was black with age, bound with iron strips that had rusted to the color of dried blood. No inscriptions marked its surface, but scratches covered the area around the ancient lock, desperate gouges in the stone, as if someone had tried to claw their way either in or out. The first time I saw those scratches, my blood ran cold. For 2 weeks I performed my duties without incident. I arrived each morning at 6, unlocked the first door, checked the seal on the second, and tried not to look at the third. I said my prayers, filled out my logbook, and left exactly 8 hours later when my replacement arrived, Brother Thomas, a Benedictine monk who never spoke and whose eyes never met mine. It was during my 3rd week that I first heard it. I was updating the logbook, noting the intact status of the seal when a sound drifted from behind the third door. Soft, almost imperceptible, like fabric brushing against stone. I froze, pen suspended above the page. The sound came again, followed by what might have been breathing, slow and deliberate. My hand moved instinctively to my sidearm, though what good a Glock would do against whatever lay beyond that ancient wood, I couldn't say. The breathing continued for several minutes before fading into silence. I wrote nothing in the log. What would I write? That I was hearing things? That the stress of the job was getting to me already? But the next day the sounds were louder. This time it wasn't just breathing. Something scraped against the door from the inside, long, deliberate strokes like fingernails on wood. The scratching continued for nearly an hour, sometimes frantic, sometimes methodical. I found myself counting the strokes, trying to find a pattern, but there was only madness in the rhythm. I broke protocol that day. Instead of leaving when Brother Thomas arrived, I waited in the corridor outside, hidden in an alcove. I watched him enter the vault, and I waited. 20 minutes later he emerged, his face even paler than usual, his hands shaking as he locked the entrance. He muttered prayers under his breath as he hurried past my hiding spot, never noticing me in the shadows. He had heard it too. The next morning, I arrived to find Father Benedetti waiting for me. "You stayed past your shift yesterday," he said. It wasn't a question. "I apologize, Father. I was curious." He finished my sentence with a knowing look. "Curiosity is natural, Marcus, but in this place, it can be deadly. Whatever you think you've heard, whatever questions plague your mind, you must resist them. Men have gone mad seeking answers to questions that should never be asked." "Father," I said carefully, "what's behind the third door?" His jaw tightened. "Do you know the story of Pandora's box, my son?" "Of course." "Then you understand that some containers must never be opened, some knowledge must never see light. The Church has survived 2 millennia by knowing when to reveal truth and when to guard it. What lies behind that door has been contained since before Christ walked the earth. It will remain contained long after you and I are dust." "Since before Christ?" I couldn't hide my shock. "But the vault, the doors, are merely the latest prison for something far older," Father Benedetti said. "Each generation of guardians has added their own barriers, their own safeguards. The third door is simply the innermost of many." That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in my small apartment near the Vatican walls, staring at the ceiling, thinking about Father Benedetti's words. Something older than Christianity itself, locked away beneath the heart of the Catholic Church. What could be so dangerous, so terrible, that it required centuries of vigilance? I returned to my post the next morning with a mixture of dread and fascination. The antechamber felt different, colder, despite the season. My breath misted in the air as I checked the seal on the second door. Behind me, the third door stood silent. Then, just as I turned to leave, I heard a voice. It spoke in a language I didn't recognize, not Latin or Italian or any modern tongue. The words were liquid, flowing together like water over stones, but underneath the alien syllables, I sensed meaning. It was calling to me, promising something. Knowledge? Power? I couldn't tell, but the desire to understand pulled at me like a physical force. I found myself standing before the third door, my hand raised toward the rusted lock. The voice grew stronger, more insistent. "Just one look," it seemed to say. "Just one glimpse of truth in a world of lies." My fingers were inches from the lock when the first door slammed open behind me. "Step away!" Brother Thomas stood in the entrance, no longer the silent monk I'd known. His eyes blazed with an intensity that made me stumble backward. "Step away from those. Door now!" I blinked, confused, as if waking from a dream. How long had I been standing there? My shift was nearly over, but I had no memory of the hours passing. "I'm sorry," I stammered. "I don't know what—" "The voice," Brother Thomas said, his own voice rough from disuse. "You heard it. They always hear it eventually. The strong ones last a few weeks, sometimes a month, but they all hear it in the end." "You can speak," I said stupidly. A bitter smile crossed his face. I took a vow of silence after my first month as guardian. I thought if I couldn't speak, perhaps it couldn't speak to me. I was wrong. It finds other ways. He moved past me to check the third door, running his fingers along the frame, muttering prayers in Latin. Satisfied that the door remained secure, he turned back to me. "You'll be transferred tomorrow," he said. "Don't fight it. Don't ask questions. Accept your new post with gratitude and never speak of this place. If you're lucky, you'll convince yourself it was all a dream." But I couldn't leave. Not without knowing. "What is it?" I asked. "What's behind the door?" Brother Thomas was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper. "In 1312, Pope Clement V disbanded the Knights Templar. History says it was for heresy, for corruption. History lies. The Templars were guardians, like us. They found something in Jerusalem, something that should have stayed buried. They brought it here, to the heart of Christendom, believing they could contain it with faith and steel. He laughed, a sound devoid of humor. Faith and steel. As if such things could hold a being that watched the first stars ignite. As if prayers could bind something that whispered in the gardens of Eden. You're saying it's... what? A demon? The devil himself? The devil. Brother Thomas shook his head. The devil is a fallen angel, a creation of God. This is something else. Something that was here before creation, before light, before the Word. The Templars called it the sleeper. The ancient texts speak of that which dreams in the dark between the stars. But names have power, and we no longer speak its true name. The temperature in the chamber dropped further. Ice began forming on the walls. It's listening, Brother Thomas whispered. It's always listening. And now that you've heard its voice, it knows you. It will call to you in your dreams, show you visions of the time before time. It will promise you truths that would shatter the foundations of the world. And if someone opened the door? Brother Thomas gripped my shoulders, his fingers digging in painfully. Then God help us all. The Church has contingency plans, protocols that would make the medieval inquisitions look merciful. They would burn half of Rome to contain it if necessary, but even that might not be enough. Some prisons once opened can never be closed again. A sound came from behind the third door, laughter, low and resonant, seeming to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. The electric lights flickered and died, plunging us into absolute darkness. In that darkness, I saw things that couldn't exist. Cities of impossible geometry beneath alien stars. Beings of such terrible beauty that to look upon them was to court madness. And through it all, a presence vast and patient, waiting as it had waited since before the birth of time. The lights returned as suddenly as they had failed. Brother Thomas and I stood gasping, both of us having seen the same visions. "Tomorrow," he said, his voice steady despite the terror in his eyes. "You'll be transferred. You'll leave Rome. You'll forget this place exists. And if you're wise, you'll spend the rest of your life praying that the third door holds." I nodded, unable to speak. But as I turned to leave, the voice came one last time, not from behind the door, but from inside my own mind, speaking in perfect, modern English. "We have waited so long, Marcus, but patience is our virtue. The stars are almost right. The door weakens with each passing century. And there are so many of you now, so many minds to touch, so many hands to turn the key. One day, someone will open the door. Perhaps it will be you." I fled then, running through the corridors like a madman, up into the light of day. But even in the bright Roman sunshine I could feel it, that presence, that awareness that had marked me. I was transferred the next day, just as Brother Thomas had promised. They sent me to a small parish in Switzerland, far from the Vatican and its secrets. I've been here for 3 years now, serving as a simple guard for a simple church. I tell myself I've forgotten, that it was all a stress-induced hallucination. But late at night, when the wind howls through the Alps, I hear whispers in that liquid ancient tongue. I see shadows move in ways that shadows shouldn't move. And sometimes in my dreams, I'm back in that chamber, standing before the third door with a key in my hand, a key I've never seen, but somehow know will fit the lock perfectly. I pray the door holds. I pray that whatever guardians have replaced Brother Thomas and me are stronger than we were. I pray that the thing beyond the door remains sleeping. But my prayers feel hollow, because deep down, in a part of my soul I can no longer call my own, I know the truth. It's not sleeping. It's waiting. And one day, when the stars align and the barriers weaken just enough, someone will open the third door. God help us all when that day comes.